Today's Blast from the Past is one of the most underrated strategy war games that you've never heard of. Even today, Birth of America 2 Wars in America has neither a critic nor user score on Metacritic, and it isn't available via Steam. As a huge fan of this game, I was shocked and left wondering just how that could be. In 1993, the short-lived tabletop games publisher Azure Wish published a little board game titled Europa Universalis. Maybe you've heard of it. While the Europa Universalis series, initially designed by Philippe Thibaut, has gone on to become a genre-defining title for PC grand strategy, it wasn't instantaneous. Thibaut was brought on to create the video game version of EU at Target Games, a Swedish RPG publisher most famous at the time for its mutant tabletop RPG games. However, most of us would be much more familiar with the company's new name, Paradox Development Studio. By the year 2000, Paradox released Europa Universalis on a proprietary engine to widely mixed but mostly higher scores. The IGN reviewer gave it a 9 out of 10, citing deep immersive gameplay, but also stating that, quote, "The game is hampered by a half-assed tutorial that explains most of the game functions, but fails to address how the various elements of the game relate to each other. Normally, you'd be able to go to the manual for this type of information, but there are problems here as well. There's no index, and we're still not even a table of contents." Just 9 months after the title's North American release, the sequel, EU2, arrived with some controversy. Computer Gaming Magazine's Tom Chick wrote, "The core gameplay is identical, and this is one of those uncomfortable situations in which a Roman numeral is appended to a great game, but you can't help but wonder if it really belongs there." Realizing that their company would be eviscerated by fans and the media if it simply kept remaking the same game, Paradox gave us not one, but 3 iconic grand strategy franchises over the next 3 years. Mr. Thibaut, however, took a different direction. Thibaut went on to make 2 games which were not nearly as well received: Pax Romana, released in 2003, and Great Invasions of the Dark Ages, released in 2006. A common thread in reviews emerged as reviewers of both of these games criticized the tutorials, documentation, and user interface. Following these lackluster releases, Thibaut formed a new company centered around a proprietary engine. AGEOD, which stands for Adaptive Game Engine Online Distribution, was founded in 2005 in Grenoble, France. The company's first release, Birth of America in 2006, was quickly followed by the game that put the company on the map a year later, AGEOD's American Civil War. Though these games would again face criticism from reviewers who struggled to grasp elements of the mechanics like supply and battle abstraction due to lackluster tutorials and documentation. However, user scores rate them at 7.3 and 7.5 out of 10 respectively, better than some of the major studio releases I've worked on recently. A year after American Civil War and just 2 years after the original BOA game launched, Birth of America 2 released. But this time, the world was a different place. Despite some favorable reviews by IGN, Games Radar, and others, the title has a remarkably small digital footprint today. The 4th result to appear in my Google search wasn't even the correct game, but a 2017 indie title, which may or may not have borrowed the name to get more downloads on Steam. Also, 2008 wasn't the best year to release a video game. And there was a lot of entrenched competition from existing franchises that year. 4 of the top 10 selling PC games in America were Sims expansion packs, with another 3 EA titles in the top 10 as well, plus releases for Call of Duty World at War, GTA 4, Fallout 3, Left 4 Dead, Dead Space, and Wrath of the Lich King, which at the time happened to be the fastest selling computer game in history with 2.8 million copies sold on the first day, and you can see that this year was definitely a difficult year to release. Not to mention there were a lot of ongoing problems with Windows Vista. Birth of America 2's relatively niche setting and complaints about turn processing times were a problem as well. Side note, processing times were something that would get worse with every subsequent Age Engine title, thanks to a lack of multi-threading. For its time, the gameplay was rather unique, taking beloved features from ACW and backwards patching them into Wars in America. But it also expanded on the topic, providing many new scenarios covering conflicts of this era. Scenarios include the 1636 Pequot War, the American Revolution in 1775, the often forgotten 1791 conflict between Little Turtle and the new American nation in the Northwest Territory, and also the War of 1812. With many additional scenarios, the game also includes a variety of settings that add or reduce the complexity, such as toggleable fog of war, non-combat attrition mechanics, delayed commitment and movement, and several ways to tweak AI behaviors. The game is essentially a deep and complex electronic board game, played on a beautifully stylized map of North America. In each scenario, the map starts a little different, with different towns, cities, and forts appearing and natives disappearing at the start as more Europeans have settled the continent. Throughout the course of a given scenario, the map will also change with the seasons, which not only looks nice, but can bring deadly weather and diseases which are endemic to the time and region. As for the soundtrack, it features the main theme and also 12 additional tracks from the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps' 1996 album, Living the Tradition. Each battle is fought in abstraction by the game engine, with players initiating combat by moving the units and leaders around on the map, backing them into armies and fleets of customized combinations at will. Combat is not simply a matter of doom stacking, however. Larger forces are penalized if there's not enough leaders to lead them, and some leaders perform worse in certain areas or with different types of units than other leaders do. Furthermore, relying on too many singularly large army stacks leaves a lot of territory open to be captured by smaller, more flexible enemy formations that will cut off your army's supply. So don't just assume that big strong army equals instant win. The units themselves are also quite different from most games. The militiamen and native warbands will go home for the winter, and regular forces disband when the unit's term of enlistment ends. Players cannot simply replace these units at will by mass spamming some kind of buy or recruit button. The units reform themselves in the spring based on things like how far into the game you are, the morale of your nation, and the amount of territory you hold, and which choices you've made in your ledger. For example, failing to spend your engagement points in your ledger on more equipment or the right militia retention decisions will reduce the number of units that rise up again in springtime in the American Revolution scenario. While I'm a huge fan of AGEOD's later games like American Civil War II and To End All Wars, they are far more complicated, and the engine is much more daunting for new players to learn because of it. Playing BOA 2 first really helps teach the fundamentals of the Age engine, which makes understanding and enjoying these other newer games much easier. Though you'll still find it can take 30 minutes or more just to move all your pieces on a map the size of American Civil War II or To End All Wars. And it can easily take 10 minutes to process the turn, since you have to click through different input decisions during the battles and click through the results. It's definitely good to have something to watch or do on another machine while you're playing one of those games. Birth of America 2 sells for $15 on the Matrix Games website, which is also where you can freely download the Legacy Patch. However, be warned, the Legacy Patch does break the War of 1812 scenario by infinitely spawning British reinforcements. The main forum link for the fix to that bug has actually been taken down, but a new link with further fixes is available in this video's description. The game runs just fine in Windows 11 without using compatibility mode, though I do run it in Administrator just in case. When I first started putting this video together, I was naively optimistic that Game Labs would finally discover the winning formula with Ultimate General American Revolution. It looked like they were about to give us a Total War / AGEOD style matchup that had just the right amount of scripted events and open-world player-centric warfare. Unfortunately, between the company being bought out by a mobile games investment group and the invasion of Ukraine, where Game Labs was based, the game was rushed out the door in a half-finished state as the studio was shuttered. In this era of ultra-fast multi-threading and 64-bit operating systems, an updated Age Engine-style grand strategy game could be an absolute rock star if done right. Many of the performance problems would be a thing of the past, and even deeper simulation could be possible without much performance loss. I won't complain too much if AGEOD keeps working on titles like Field of Glory Empires and its most recent Field of Glory Kingdoms. That said, I will keep plugging in a portable disk drive and reinstalling Birth of America 2 in every new computer I buy until the game simply stops working, because there's just nothing else out there today that really scratches the same itch. If you're a fan of gaming history content, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to throw a comment down below to appease the mighty YouTube algorithm. Thank you very much.